Hello, and welcome to Badger Talks Live, which brings exciting happenings, resources, and talent from your UW flagship campus to the people of Wisconsin and beyond. I'm Amelia Katakutan, a junior studying international studies in the College of Letters and Sciences. I am originally from Franklin, Wisconsin, and currently serve as the organizational outreach here at the MSC. I'm pleased to introduce Claudia Guzmán, the Assistant Dean and Director of the UW-Madison Multicultural Student Center, also known as the MSC. Today, she will be sharing information about how the MSC has been centering, affirming, and supporting multicultural student populations on campus for more than 3 decades. Born and raised in Milwaukee, Claudia graduated Magna Cum Laude from Wellesley College and holds a master's degree through Marquette University. Through her previous roles as Director of Student Life at UW-Green Bay and Sociocultural Programming Manager at UW-Milwaukee, she brings a wealth of experience in co-curricular programming, social justice leadership development, and multicultural student organization support. Claudia will be answering questions at the end of the presentation, but feel free to post them in the chat at any point. Please welcome Claudia Guzmán.
Thank you so much, Amelia. Amelia is one of our amazing team of student interns here at the MSC. So I really appreciate you being part of this production. And you're going to see a little bit more of Amelia in our Welcome to the MSC intro video. So Anthony, if you could please cue the video.
Hi, my name is Amelia Katakutan, and I'm the organizational outreach intern here at the Multicultural Student Center, also known as the MSC. Today, we're going to show you just what makes the MSC so many multicultural students home away from home. So come join us. Most of our spaces are located on the first and second floors of the iconic Red Gym, just east of Memorial Union.
Today, the MSC includes 4 identity centers in addition to our general spaces, programs, and services. The oldest of these is the BCC, or the Black Cultural Center, which was opened in 2017. The BCC includes a lounge, classroom, computer stations, and art gallery. Upstairs on the second floor, the MSC features several general spaces where students are able to study, hang out with friends, or attend student organization meetings or programs. We also host drop-in services here, inviting resources like advising, tutoring, and mental health services to set up tables in our lounge. In 2019, as a result of student of color activism and inspired by the Black Cultural Center, the MSC opened 2 more identity centers, the Asian Pacific Islander Desi American Student Center, also known as the APIDA SC, and the Latinx Cultural Center, also known as the LCC. In fall 2021, our 4th identity center, the Indigenous Student Center, joined the MSC family. The ISC is located in a 3-story house at 215 North Brook Street. And now that you know a little bit about us, it's time that you meet the staff.
Hi, my name is Claudia Guzmán, and I'm the Director of the Multicultural Student Center. My favorite thing about the MSC is our staff. We have amazing professional staff of color who are committed to serving students, and we also have an amazing intern team that does a ton of events, activities, and manages all of our spaces and our front desk services. So anytime you walk into the MSC, you're going to see a friendly face and someone who's here to help you enjoy your time at UW-Madison.
I'm Lauren Adams. I use she, her, hers. I'm the program coordinator for the Black Cultural Center. And one of the things that I love about our centers are that the students who are very active on campus use their voices to create these spaces to make sure that not only do they have a good experience as a student, but that students who come after them also do.
My name is Cristian Noriega. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I'm the program coordinator for the Latinx Cultural Center. My favorite part of the Latinx Cultural Center is how committed our students are to our programs. When we did the Latinx Heritage Month Planning Committee through the pandemic, students were coming into our Zoom calls every single week, and they really didn't miss, and it could not have been done without them.
My name is Bobby Skinador. I'm an enrolled member of the United Nation. I'm the program coordinator for the Indigenous Student Center. My favorite thing about our centers are the students that make it up. I love seeing students, I love hanging out with them, and they're just fabulous humans.
Hi, I'm Kiki McCants. I use they, she pronouns, and and I'm the Organizational Development Specialist for the MSC. During my undergrad, something that I really loved about the MSC is that it's a communal space where I just see and find a lot of my friends, and they bring in a lot of drop-in resources for students, from tutoring, mental health services, to career and college advising.
The MSC and our family of identity centers can be your home away from home. Coming into the space, we hope you feel a sense of belonging and connectedness on campus. UW-Madison is huge, but through developing your own community of care and support, it can feel like home. So visit us to study with friends or by yourself, hang out with your student organization members, or connect and make new friends.
Welcome to the MSC!
So that was a little introduction to the MSC, and I want to give a big shout out once again to Amelia for being the MC and host of our tour, and also shout out to Rachel Nguyen, who did all of the filming and editing on the video. So as I said, we have an incredibly talented and dedicated group of interns here at the Multicultural Student Center, and we're really blessed to have that. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the MSC, a little bit about our current structure, our history as to how we got here, and also where we're going. So we want to start with an intro to our spaces. The Multicultural Student Center, most of our spaces are located in the iconic red gym right next to Memorial Union on the shore of Lake Mendota here at UW-Madison. So it's a beautiful historic building. We have a number of general spaces that include the lounge, the student org suite, classroom, and a conference room, which you saw a video of. And then we also have 4 identity centers that are part of the MSC family. So the APIDA Student Center, or Asian Pacific Islander Desi American Student Center, the Black Cultural Center, the Indigenous Student Center, and the Latinx Cultural Center. The Indigenous Student Center is the only one that is not currently located in the Red Gym. It is in a standalone house at 215 North Brook Street, which is about halfway between Memorial Union and Union South. Oops. Just kidding. Okay. Spaces, programs. So we have a number of major programs, including we kick off every year with MCOR, which is our multicultural celebration of organizations and resources. So this includes a student organization performance showcase, student organizations tabling to recruit students for their orgs, typically about 60 orgs, as well as campus resources. This year is the 40th anniversary of MCOR, so it is actually older than the Multicultural Student Center. We also have new student welcomes that are hosted by each of the 4 identity centers in September. We know that there's a lot going on during UW-Madison's SOAR as well as Wisconsin Welcome. So these new student welcomes are much smaller identity-based receptions to help students get to know one another and connect around their cultural identity. Each of the identity centers also convenes Heritage Months. So we have Latinx Heritage Month, which kicks off in September for 4 weeks. Then we have Native November, Black History Month in February, and APIDA Heritage Month in April. We convene a student-led programming committee for each of these heritage months that starts about 6 months prior to the month itself. These programming committees have subgroups that focus on different focus areas for the month, and they produce about 8 to 12 signature events for each heritage month. Then we also work with university communications to develop a landing page where we can also source additional events that other campus partners and student organizations may be presenting as part of the Heritage Month. So I'll give a quick shout out for this year's Latinx Heritage Month, which is kicking off in less than a month. You can find more information at wisc.edu/Latinx. And this year's theme is Expression Beyond the Margins. And then finally, we wrap up the year with the Multicultural Graduation and Leadership Awards. So all multicultural students are able to sign up for this event. We present them with a stole that they can wear at commencement. We read each of their names and have them cross the stage, which is a really special moment. This is not something that we have the capacity to do at UW-Madison's overall commencement. So again, it's a smaller scale opportunity to recognize the accomplishments and contributions of multicultural students on campus. We also do leadership awards at this event. So our multicultural student organizations are able to nominate one another for a variety of awards. And then the third aspect that I want to share with you all is our services. So one of our areas of service is the Multicultural Student Organization and Affiliation Program. So all student organizations register at UW-Madison with the Center for Leadership and Involvement. And then they have the opportunity to select a dual registration partner who has some content expertise and can support those student organizations. So the MSC is a dual registration partner, and we have about 60 organizations that choose to dual register with us. We pull them together on a monthly basis for the Multicultural Organizations Assembly, where they can share resources and information and also get some organizational development workshops. Oftentimes we also convene retreats for this group. A really important aspect of how we support multicultural student organizations on campus is the Multicultural Council Grant. So this has been in existence since 1973, again, older than the Multicultural Student Center. It is funded by the Chancellor's Office. Student orgs are able to apply for funding, and then we have a council of student org members that represent various organizations that are affiliated with the MSC, and they administer that grant. Last year, we were able to give away $27,000 to 17 different student organizations. And you see on the slide, I have a little highlight of Diwali Night was one of the events that was funded. It's the Indian Student Association's event. And if you follow us at UW Multicultural on Instagram, you can scroll down to this December 16th, 2021 post and see all of the orgs that were funded last fall. Another area of services is our drop-in services. So we partner with resources from across campus and invite them to come into the Red Gym and set up a satellite office in our lounge. So academic advising, tutoring, the writing center, career services, lots of different folks are invited to come into both the MSC as well as the BCC and the Indigenous Student Center because there's a little bit of distance between those three spaces. To provide their services in a comfortable and familiar environment that many multicultural students frequent. And then the last service that I wanted to highlight was our room reservations. So as I mentioned, the MSC has several shared spaces, and we host a lot of different events here, and we manage these spaces with our student intern team. There's a lot of demand on these spaces. So the way that we prioritize them is first, we use those for MSC events. Our next tier of priority is for multicultural student organization events, but then we also accommodate events that are hosted by other units within student affairs or our neighbors here in the Red Gym, as long as the event really centers and supports multicultural students. So our staff, you saw many of them in the video, but like many departments within, many institutions in higher education, we're having some staffing turnover. So, that creates some challenges as well as opportunities. But some of the folks that you did not see in the video are Evelyn Mendoza, our new operations coordinator. So she oversees our student intern team and manages our front desks. Noreen Siddiqui is the new assistant director for the identity centers. So she supervises the 4 program coordinators who oversee those centers. We're in the last stages of hiring a new APIDA Student Center program coordinator. So hope to introduce you all to someone in the next couple of months. And then at the end of the week, we are saying goodbye to Maria Ahmed, who has been the assistant director for leadership and involvement for over 5 years. So lots going on in the pro staff side, but we're really lucky that we have such a significant group of student interns who really are the heart and soul of the MSC. They provide that direct support to their peers who access our spaces and programs. So we have about 16 who work the front desk as well as operations, meaning that they support all of the event setup that happens here. We have 9 cultural programming interns. So each of the cultural centers has 2 interns, and then I oversee 1 who does some general multicultural programming. We have the communications team, which Rachel is part of, the student who created the wonderful intro video. And then finally, the student org support interns. Amelia is one of those students. And then her position does student organization outreach and communications. And then her counterpart, Kristen, administers the Multicultural Council grant. So I want to give a little bit of MSC history, but I also want to recognize that this is incomplete and it is a project that I'm committed to working on throughout this year, because next year is the 35th anniversary of the Multicultural Student Center. So I trace our roots back to 1968 when campus started the Afro-American and Race Relations Center. For various reasons, that was a short-lived entity. It only lasted about 5 years. In 1969, we had the Black student strike, which was a huge moment for student activism on campus, especially student of color activism. So Black students brought 13 demands to the then chancellor, and they threatened to boycott classes if those demands were not met. They ended up doing a number of actions, protests and demonstrations, starting with groups of about 250 students and growing to up to 3,000 students. The student government endorsed the strike. There was lots of unrest and the National Guard was called. So, really this sparked student activism and students of color really demanding that the university provide culturally relevant services to help them succeed and thrive academically and personally on campus. I have a link here that I recommend you take a look at. It's a really great a timeline with photos that depicts some of the important moments in the Black student strike. And the 13 demands are actually posted in the Black Cultural Center because we want to honor those roots. In 1973, as I shared, the Multicultural Council grant was established. That is funded by the Office of the Chancellor. And again, I just think it's really important that it preceded the Multicultural Student Center, which means that the university is seeing value in the contributions of multicultural student organizations and providing resources for them. Similarly, 9 years later, the university began MCOR, which I mentioned earlier in the slides. This is our 40th MCOR. And so it started as a much smaller event, and MCOR stood for the Multicultural Orientation and Reception. It's grown significantly over the years. Last year, we had about 1,000 students come to watch the performance showcase, and about 500 students come through for the student org tabling event because those were separated. This year, we're combining it all, into one sort of larger extravaganza, and we've renamed MCOR the Multicultural Celebration of Organizations and Resources. So all that happens even before we get an MSc. The MSc is founded in 1988 by Dr. Candace McDowell. It started in Memorial Union, and I'm working on tracing the history to figure out exactly when it moved over to the Red Gym. So now we're, in, let's say it's just the last 5 years. You can see these last 4 bullet points. We have grown significantly. And all of that is rooted in, I would say, the Black Lives Matter movement that was huge by 2016. And so once again, students are looking around and asking themselves, where is the support for me? Who is helping me not only thrive, but even survive and navigate this vast institution? And so, as a result of student activism, we have the Black Cultural Center that was established in 2017. Inspired by that success, our other communities also began to rally for resources and successfully advocated for the APIDA Student Center and Latinx Cultural Center by 2019. And then just last year, we took on responsibility for the Indigenous Student Center, which has been around for many years and was formerly under the management of the American Indian Studies Academic Department and moved to Student Affairs last year. So a lot has happened in a very short amount of time. And with staff transitions, with the pandemic, there's a lot of challenges, but also a lot of opportunities that I'm going to share with you shortly. The MSc is in the process of revising our mission. So, as I mentioned, in the past couple of years, we've had a lot of transition. Also, really, I think, have had to reflect on what we are to students and whether or not we're still meeting the needs that they had perhaps before the pandemic. So we've been working on some strategic planning processes, but we have not completely finalized that. So I want to just give a caveat that this mission is not finalized, but very close to it. So this is something that our team came up with about a year ago. So the Multicultural Student Center provides co-curricular experiences that center, affirm, and celebrate the diverse and intersectional identities of students of color. Our spaces, programs, and services are designed to cultivate a sense of belonging and community while strengthening all students' capacity to learn, lead, and thrive. And we revised that because our previous mission was to collaboratively strengthen and sustain, an inclusive campus where all students, particularly students of color and other historically underserved students, can realize an authentic Wisconsin experience. And our team just felt like we needed to put students of color at the forefront of our mission. And so that's where we bring in some of the language around centering, affirming, and celebrating. In addition to, this idea of belonging and community. And then the guiding philosophies are more informal. Some of the things that we have been talking about as a group that we see as really important aspects of the MSc. So like Amelia shared in the video, we really want the MSc spaces to feel like a home away from home, where students of color can bring some of their, traditions and just have an experience where they're not the only one or they're not a minority, but they're surrounded by folks who maybe have a shared experience. We want to create an affirming space. And I recognize that a lot of times people think about, multicultural centers as safe spaces. And while I think that they are, I think there's more to it. I think that we're a safe space that allows students to explore their identity, to really think about what it means to be a student of color on a predominantly white campus, and to know, I think really just to have a sense of affirmation in their identity so that they can continue to navigate the larger campus community and be brave and be their authentic self and know that that their identity is an important part of that. And then the third piece is just making campus feel smaller. We know this is a vast campus and there are so many great resources available to students, but it takes a lot. It takes a lot to navigate all of that, and it can be really overwhelming. So that's part of why we have our drop-in services, because we want to invite all of those services to come in and serve our students in a space where they feel really comfortable and that they're familiar with. So this is just, a small smattering of challenges and opportunities. And, I tried to align every challenge with an opportunity. So the first challenge is, reintroducing ourselves to students following pandemic shutdowns. So we were pretty much closed for a year. We did a lot of virtual programming, and then all of the spaces here at the MSC, we turned into study spaces. Only 20 students could safely study in our spaces during the height of COVID. So a lot of new students, I think, probably still don't even know we exist because our spaces were not available. And so even last year, as we began, as we reopened, one thing I noticed is that we don't really have any literature anywhere around campus that says the MSC exists and here's where it is. Again, that's a result of COVID, right? Everybody got rid of all their literature. We shut down for a year. Nobody was coming to our building, so there wasn't a reason to have anything. And so we're in the process of developing some literature, making sure all of our campus stakeholders have that, in advising offices, at the Center for First Year Experience, at the info desks. And then the opportunity attached to that is that we just rebranded our logo family. So the MSC logo that you saw at the beginning, at the first slide, is sort of an umbrella logo. And then each of the 4 identity centers has a logo that complements that MSC logo. I didn't pull them all into the PowerPoint, but you can see them in our social media. And again, I think because we've grown so fast, a lot of folks don't recognize that the identity centers are part of the Multicultural Student Center. Another challenge is staff turnover. It's not an uncommon challenge, but it gives us the opportunity to rethink and improve our operations, programs, and services. We've created 1 new position as a result of that rethinking. So that's great. We also know that mental health, there's a crisis nationally among college students. And then I think that crisis is exacerbated by some of the additional challenges that are faced by students of color, again, especially in the past 5 years with the rise in anti-Asian hate crimes that coincided with COVID. We all know that the George Floyd murder was a huge impetus for social justice activism on campus, and also happened during a time that we were socially isolated during the pandemic. So that was very challenging. One of the opportunities there is that, we've always partnered with mental health services on Let's Talk, which is a drop-in mental health counseling group. For the last couple of years, that has been a virtual service, which, probably is not the ideal format for students. So we're bringing that back to in person, and each of the identity centers is going to be hosting in partnership with MHS. So that's very exciting. And then another challenge is that every year well, at least for the past 2 years, our first year class size continues to grow. And along with that, the percentage of students of color, which means more students for the MSC to serve. And as such, we need more resources. One of the opportunities that comes from that is that we're working with administration on some renovations of the Red Gym to better serve our growing populations. And then next school year is going to be the 35th anniversary of the MSC. So I'm excited to sort of leverage that as an opportunity to gain additional support and awareness for the work that we're doing. Finally, I wanted to maybe give you all some ideas on how you might help the MSC or connect with us. So make sure you tell students about us. We are located in this beautiful historical building that has no signage. The sign says Red Gym and Armory, which perhaps is confusing. So the Multicultural Student Center is in here. If you are a campus department or a community organization, we'd love to have you sponsor or co-sponsor a program or collaborate in other ways. We also have some funds that sit with the Wisconsin Foundation and Alumni Association, so you can always donate to us by directing your gift to the Multicultural Student Center. And then finally, I just wanted to share my email address and our handle where you can find all the great latest up-to-date happenings at the MSC. So at UW Multicultural on Facebook and Instagram.
Fantastic. Claudia, thanks so much for sharing all of this information. And I learned a ton, and I've been on campus for several years now. So I think this is all really important information, not just for people around the state and prospective students, but for us here on campus who don't really know what's happening over there. And just want to say, you're in that incredibly cool, probably the most architecturally interesting building on campus, the Red Gym, which was an armory in the late 1800s. And Claudia and I were chatting and we were speculating of the hauntedness of that building. So if nothing else, check out the exterior of the building. It's very, very cool. So Fran Paleo-Moyer here, Badger Talks producer, everybody. We're talking to Claudia Guzmán today about the Multicultural Student Center. We do have a post here in the chat from Kate Schachter, and she says, you offer important services to campus students. I am the campus Peace Corps recruiter, and I'm interested in talking with someone at MSC about dual registration for presentations on unique multicultural opportunities in the Peace Corps and or room reservation for the same. Who is the best person to reach out to? Should she reach out to that general email or?
That's a great question. Thank you. I should have put the general email in my slide, but yes, an inquiry like that would go to msc@studentaffairs.wisc.edu. And then we would triage it from there.
Okay, I am posting that email address in the chat for everybody. And we also did post the link you put in there for the Black Student Strike. We also posted the link to your Instagram account so people can have easy access to it. So great. Great. So you have this awesome team of students, and I'm fortunate enough to be housed in Union South in the office with all of the information guides and tour guides of campus. So I know about a lively student office, and it's a lot of fun. So your student staff, are those paid positions or are those volunteer positions?
Those are all paid positions.
Okay, great. And so there's not necessarily volunteer opportunities for students in the office. It's really these paid positions.
So the Heritage Month planning committees are volunteers. And we also just this year, so the Multicultural Council that evaluates the grants, we also have made that a new paid student opportunity. So that's exciting as well. And any student who is part of a multicultural registered student organization can apply to be on that council.
Great. And in terms of terms, those are regular student jobs, so they're not necessarily only a one-year term or?
Yeah, so typically we recruit students who are at least in their second year, although I will say that we do make exceptions, especially for our front desk and operations team. But typically our cultural programming students, we want to have a little bit more experience on campus. Once they get a job with the MSC, they do have to reapply every year, but it's more than likely that they will be rehired. It's just so that we have, some performance management processes.
Okay, great. So if a student simply identifies, so for me, for example, I'm half Mexican, I would be interested in the Latinx group. Do I just self-identify, or are there some kind of requirements for students?
I'm really glad you asked that question because, I think another one of our challenges that I did not bring up is students who perhaps don't identify with any one of the 4 identity centers, and making sure that the Multicultural Student Center is still providing enough programming for multicultural students who don't feel like any of those 4 identity centers are for them. Going back to your question, yes, any of the identity centers are for whoever feels like they identify with those communities, and we're not checking on that. But we also want students to feel like they can go into each other's centers and connect. We also want biracial and multiracial students to feel like they have multiple spaces. And I think a growth area for us is making sure that we do have more multicultural, multiracial programming, because, the 4 identity centers do a ton of wonderful programming for their populations. And we're not currently, we don't currently have the infrastructure to do a lot of general programming outside of the identity centers, but that's something that I'm trying to grow. And it's exactly that kind of work. Where's the intersectionality? Where's the solidarity? Where are the commonalities that we may have as communities of color on a predominantly white institution? So I think I answered your question, and then
you did.
a little
Thank
bit
you
more.
so much. We all pretty much know that when we have a gathering of people from different walks of life and diverse backgrounds, that the result is an incredibly creative place, right? So I noticed that the Black Cultural Center had an art gallery. So my background is in music and the arts. So just kind of curious about this. So the art gallery at the Black Cultural Center, is that student-led? And are there other like artistic and creative development kinds of things happening there?
What a great question. So one thing that I will say is, when the Black Cultural Center was envisioned in, 2016 to 2017, there were a lot more stakeholders and resources that were dedicated to that process than were available when the other 2 centers were established. And so, the Black Cultural Center is really much more developed than the other centers, as far as, it has a classroom, which is a reservable space. It has the lounge. It has 2 computers. Lauren's office, the program coordinator, is down there. There's a front desk because it's right inside the front doors of the Red Gym. So we need some, welcoming customer service staff down there. And then we have the art gallery. And so all of these pieces of the BCC were very intentionally curated by a group of stakeholders. The art gallery rotates. And Lauren really curates what goes in there. I know that this fall, we're going to have, the exhibit is going to feature a student artist. And I think in the past, we featured a variety of faculty, staff, and and student and community artists whose work has been displayed in that space. You may have noticed in the footage from the video that the Latinx Cultural Center has a gorgeous mural That mural was developed during the pandemic. So the artist is a Madison-based muralist named Rodrigo Carapia. He does amazing work around the city, and he held a couple of virtual focus groups with students during the pandemic to collect themes. And then he developed that mural, which is called La Cosecha, which is Spanish for harvest. And it brings in these themes of, the strength and vibrance of our cultural roots and how that supports the growth of our growth and development of our academic goals.
Excellent.
And we do.
Oh, please go ahead.
I was just going to add that we do incorporate the arts into our programming. So we've had, paint classes, dance classes. I think the arts are a really important way for us to share and celebrate identity.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, one final question for you, Claudia. We're lucky to have you on the Madison campus. It looks like you have a wealth of experience with your schooling and your experience around the country. So why UW-Madison?
That's a good question. And I will say that I'm very happy here, and I feel like this is the best place for me to be. I'm from Wisconsin, and this is the flagship institution in our state. And, just the experiences that I've had at UW-Milwaukee and UW-Green Bay, and really personally as a woman of color who experienced a lot of similar challenges and opportunities in my undergrad. I feel like I have a lot of skills and resources that I really enjoy leveraging here, where we have such incredibly smart, talented, and dedicated students, and especially our students of color who really are making the choice to select this great institution that is not without its challenges.
For sure. Thanks so much. Very well said. I appreciate that. Well, Claudia, thanks so much for joining us today. I hope that we will have current students and future students and people around the state listening to this talk and supporting your great work and all of the students that are connected with it. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Great. Well, join us as Badger Talks Live continues in the month of September. We're going to be highlighting the latest cancer research coming out of the McArdle Laboratory for Cancer Research. We're going to be talking with some esteemed faculty and researchers in the month of September, kicking off on Tuesday, September 13th at noon. You can visit badgertalks.wis.edu to see that upcoming schedule of talks and the details there. You can also sign up for our email list, consider a donation to Badger Talks. We are grant funded. You can also search the roster of over 400 faculty and staff who've signed up through Badger Talks to give talks in communities around the state like yours. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you in September.